can almost hear and breathe. The sound is haunted. I hear him coming. Who's gonna save you when the lights go out? Who's gonna save you when the lights go out? Who's gonna save you when the lights go out? Who's gonna save you when the lights go Who's gonna save you when the lights go out? Always playing hide and seek. The devil never sleeps. So who's gonna save me when the lights go out? creeping through my window as I close my eyes. Fall back into bed, it was a long night, and I can't find a word to say. Emotion running from my tongue like a bird is running from a gun. It was a long night, and I can't find a word to say. Boy, try to catch my words, but they keep falling, spilling out my mouth, and now I'm crawling back to where this all began. Boy, try to catch my words, but they keep falling, spilling out my mouth, and now I'm crawling back to where this all began. And I just can't get it right. Midnight, halfway through a bottle, and it feels right. Ooh, I think I got it, then it's gone like I can't find a word to say. Driving, try to keep my eyes inside the lines while my mind is racing. Didn't anticipate the air, watching now falling. Try to catch my words, but they keep falling, spilling out my mouth, and now I'm crawling back to where this all began. Falling, try to catch my words, but they keep falling, spilling out my mouth, and now I'm crawling back to where this all began. And I just can't get it right. Ooh, I said I'm falling, try to catch my words, but they keep falling, spilling out my mouth, and now I'm crawling back to where this all began. Try to catch my words, but they keep falling, spilling out my mouth, and now I crawl back to you, 'cause you just feel so right.
I've been waiting a long time to feel like I'm home. I was broken so early, my young heart grew bold. I was chasing the cold eye, the memories of ghosts. You're the hope of the morning in my midnight storm. Can you feel my love? Oh, 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 oh. Can you feel my love? Oh, 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 oh. Can you feel? Can you feel? Can you feel my love? Can you feel? Can you feel? Can you feel my love? I've been waiting a long time to feel like I'm home.
Snowflakes fall on our eyelashes as we tread through the snow. We've struggled through the year much like we
a fresh blanket of snow. We let go of all our fears. We hold on to hope. We cherish moments in our hearts like gifts that we hold. We feel this joy wrap around us like a scarf that keeps us warm. And it's the hope of the season, it's that time of the year when miracles can happen and our cares disappear like a fresh blanket of snow. We let go of all our fears and we hold on to hope. 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 I know it's dark, it's hard to see the light that shines in us. We hold on to the hope of the season. We hold on to let go. It's the hope of the season. It's that time of the year when miracles can happen and our cares disappear like a fresh blanket of snow. We let go of all our fears and we hold on to hope. 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 There's so many reasons why I could walk away, protect my own heart so that I stay safe. But when I look into your eyes, I know why I stay.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I figured I'd take this time out just to explain how to write fantasy. I get a lot of messages from people on, Kyle, how do we actually write fantasy? And fantasy is one of those genres that I think is probably the hardest to write. If you can write fantasy, you can write any other genre, because within fantasy, you have romance, you have adventure, you have comedy, you have world building, you have history. There's a lot that goes into writing fantasy. So if you can write fantasy, then you can write anything. Keep that in your head. If you have any questions, just put it down in the chat. Say hi. I'll get those messages. So we're going into how to write fantasy. And before I actually go into that, I want to tell you the story of how I got into this. So it started in 2013. In 2013, I just finished my matric exams and I was at home wondering what to do. And I had this idea for what we call anthropomorphic animals in war. So animals that can use swords and weapons and all these kind of things. And these animals, they involved in war, and I had this just a general idea of what I wanted to do. And that's important for later. I'll explain why it's important with that idea. But I had this idea for a fantasy book, and I decided, okay, let me write it. At the time, I didn't have a laptop. I had a little tab, and I decided to write on that tab. And I wrote it every single night. I'd be speaking to my brother about how excited I am about this little book. And I wrote that book in a month. And I was thinking, oh, wow, I'm actually pretty good at this, 40,000 words in a month. That went good. And I sent that through to the publishers thinking, this is going to make me millions, I was wrong. There was no millions that came with that. All those publishers ended up rejecting me. I think I sent it through about 22, 25 plus publishers. All of them rejected me. But I decided, okay, let me keep writing. So 2015, I started writing my second book. And I wrote it, and this book was a lot better than the first book. I wrote and I wrote and I wrote. It came out really great. I sent it through to the publishers, exact same thing. All of them rejected me. With my third book, I thought, okay, maybe fantasy is not my genre. Let me switch genres. So I started writing a Christian fiction novel. That book took me a bit longer, which is again very important, because when you are writing something that you are not a fan of, it takes so much longer to write. So I started writing that book, and it took me about 6 months. I wrote it, sent it through to the publishers, and they all rejected me again. And then finally, 2019, I started writing a book called The Turlock Triangle, which is this one right here. So The Turlock Triangle, I started writing in 2019, and halfway through writing it, I found out what was the problem. I realized there's something wrong with this book that it's just not getting to the point where I wanted to. So what I did was I deleted all 40,000 words, and I figured out what was the secret to writing. And the secret to writing a good fantasy book is planning. And that's what we'll be focusing on today. We'll be focusing on how do you plan your first fantasy novel. So the first thing that happens when you plan a fantasy novel is you obviously need an idea. Now, ideas I can't give you. No one can give you an idea. An idea is an inspiration. And because I'm a born-again Christian, I believe an idea is an inspiration from God. Stephen King says that the best way to immortalize bad ideas is by writing them down. The best way to immortalize bad ideas is to write them down. Now, it might sound weird as a writer to say that, but I fully agree, because the best ideas I've ever had, I never needed to write them down. 3, 4, 5 years later, I still have that idea. And if you have an idea in your head that you just can't get out of it, and it's been there for a while, you know that idea is from God, and it's your responsibility to act on it. So if you do have an idea that you'd love to write, just say, I've got an idea in the chat, and I'll give you a little wave. So if you have an idea that you want to act on, you need to make sure that you start acting on it. And the first thing that you need to do is you need to start planning. So the first thing you have to do is have an idea. And there's a lot of different ways to get creative enough to have an idea. Take a walk, watch a movie, read a book, experience new and different things. Those are the best ways to develop your creative side. If you want to be more creative, all you need to do is collect more experiences. I love running and jumping, and the more hobbies you have, the easier it is to write a book. So if I have to use examples for my books, The Turlock Triangle, this is about 2 cousins who go on a tag team tournament to complete 9 challenges within 9 months in 9 different provinces. Why did I write that book? Because I love tournaments. I do martial arts, so I like fighting. I love swords, I collect them. It's all things that I personally love doing, so I write books on what I love doing. This book is The Gloat. Gloat stands for Greatest Loser of All Time, The Search for Mokele Mbembe. I got the idea for this book in one night, and within 10 days, the book was written. Because it's based on what I personally want to do. I'm a biologist. I love animals and I love cryptic zoology, which is the study of hidden animals. And one day I watched a documentary on hidden dinosaurs. So a dinosaur that might actually still exist in the Congo. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'd love to go and check out that thing, see if it's real, do an expedition. And I checked the price. The price was $10,000 to go. I don't have that money. So I decided instead of going, let me write a book about somebody who does go. I got the entire idea for that book within one night. I fleshed it out. I planned it out. And within 10 days, that book was written. That's exactly how you get ideas based off what you personally want to do. This is The Search for Power. It is the first book of my fantasy series. I planned all 7 books out before I started writing book 1. What's it based on? It's based on superpowers. I thought, what if I woke up one day and the whole world had superpowers except me? How would I feel? Would I still be able to chase my goals? And then I thought, okay, I got that worked out. Let me figure out what can I do to make it more unique. Let me give it a military feel to it. And that's how I got the ideas for these books. So the idea is the first step. It is based off your personal hobbies and desires. Things that you like, that's what your ideas must be based off. Never write an idea based off someone else's, because I guarantee you that's going to take so long to write that book. It's going to take so long. So put something in the chat. Say hi, give a wave. Tell me if you're following. Step 1, have your idea. Now, step 2 is, what we're going to do is, when you write fantasy, before I go to step 2, when you write fantasy, there are 3 things you need to think of. You need to think of the plot, in other words, the storyline. You need to think of the world building, the world, the map, the weather systems, the magic systems, the type of creatures and races that are in it. And then you need to think of characters themselves. How are you going to build out those characters? Now, a lot of people will say, focus on the world building first, which is a good way, but that's not the way that I do. I like to first focus a little bit more on plot. Because when people talk about your book, what they're going to remember is the storyline. The storyline is what's going to keep them engaged, not the whole new worlds and things. If there's no story to take them to the world, it's useless. So I like focusing on story first, plot. So in the plot, what we do is I try to think of at least 10, depends on how big your world is. The book that I'm currently writing, I thought of about 30. But for you, if it's your first one, you're going to think of 10 major events in your story. 10 major events. That's going to help you to figure out, because the important thing of thinking of these 10 major events is, if you think of any book you've read or any movie you've watched, what stands out to you? You don't talk about the whole thing. You talk about the important moments in that story. That's your major events, and those major events are planned. Everything else is leading up. It's like I'm leading up to the major event. Boom, there's my major event. That's what you're going to remember, and that's what you're going to talk about to your friend. When people read my book and they message me and they say, oh my gosh, I just got to that chapter, it's amazing, this happened and that happened. I guarantee you, I planned that to happen. Because I planned those major events. And when you plan major events, it's easier to build it up. So think of at least 10 major events. The bigger your story, the more major events you want. Right? The Search for Power, I think, okay, the major event will be the trigger when he goes to find his power. One trigger event will be the battle that they had at this place. Another trigger event will be the point where he gets his power. Those are what we call major events. Those are the things that people are going to remember. If you think of Harry Potter, you don't remember every single part of Harry Potter, you remember the main points that everybody talks about. Why? Because those main points were planned in advance. Those are the things that stand out. So you're going to plot 10 major events, and everything else is leading up to those 10 major events. Now, you've got your 10 major events, and instead of now figuring out the plot even more, we take a pause. Don't go on with plot. You have your 10 major events, you take a pause, now you jump over to world building. So a lot of people, they flesh out the whole world building before they even do the plot. I don't like doing that. I prefer you do your plot, you only your major points. Then from there, you'll go into world building. But you're not going to do all the world building at one point. What you're going to be focusing on is a map. Now, it's very easy to draw a fantasy map. All you need to do is you go to YouTube and you type in how to draw fantasy maps. There's series and series and series. I draw my own fantasy maps. Lately, I've learned how to actually make fantasy maps that I can put in my books. So, it's very easy to draw a fantasy map. You'll just learn it on there. But the importance of having a map is, now that you have your major events, you can plot where those events are going to happen. So you draw out your map. J.R.R. Tolkien says that whenever you start writing a fantasy book, the best thing to do is start with a map. Because if you have a map, you can plot out the events easily and clearly. That's what we are going to do. So you have your map, you've drawn it, you know where your mountains are, where your forests, where your cities are, where your starting point for your main character is. You've got the map worked out, and now all you do is you put an X on that map where the major events are happening. So I have the major event. I know I want to start here. I want my character to travel there. In major event number 1 is going to be there, 2 is there, 3 is there, and you figured out your map and your plot points clearly. Then, now that you've had all those plot points, it's very easy then to figure out, okay, between plot point 1, so let's say plot point 1 was here, plot point 2 was there. Between 1 and 2, what happens there? And that's where your rest of your plot comes in. But you can only do that once you figured out your major events. And that's what we'll focus on a bit later. Before we go on to that, now we'll go to characters. So, first step, you have an idea. This idea can't be something that is stolen. It needs to be based off what you personally want. Because if you're going to take an idea, I've tried writing books where I think this is what the crowd will enjoy. It doesn't work. You write a book for you to read personally, and then when we edit the book based off what people are going to see. But when you write for you. So that's step 1. You have a good idea. Number 2, you figure out what's the main events that are going to happen in the story that I'm writing. Third, you have your map, world building, the first part. We're not going to flesh out the whole world, who the races are and the characters and the weather systems. We'll leave that for later. Just get a map so you can plot your main points on there. And then finally, number 4. Number 4 are characters. And these are only going to be main characters. And when I say main characters, it doesn't just have to be the good guys. It can be the main protagonist, which is the good guys, the main antagonist, which is the bad guys. If I think of my stories, the Turlock Triangle. For the Turlock Triangle, I had my main good characters. So I had Matthew, I had Brody, I had his uncle. Those were the main good guys. Now, there were multiple antagonists in that, so I didn't worry about that in the beginning. Because if you have multiple antagonists, you're going to have to figure out, okay, where am I going to place them? Right? But I had my good characters laid out. After that, I figured out, okay, these are going to be the side characters. In the Gloat, there were no antagonists. The antagonist was the storyline. Actually, the main character is the antagonist, but you'll see it. If you read the book, you'll understand what I mean. So the main character is the good guy and the bad guy. But in his party, in his team, there are 6 people. Those 6 people, I flesh them out. I know each person, what they are like. If I think of the search for power, this was a bit more fleshed out. So I have my main character. It's the main character, his best and his 2 best friends. Those were the bigger ones. Then I have the main antagonist who's going to fight them. Then I have a middle character who's not actually a bad guy, but he's doing bad things. And then I thought, how do I make this even more interesting? Let me add some morally gray characters. So, but again, these are not side characters. These are characters who are vital and important to the story. You're going to have your main characters. Your main characters are going to be your protagonists, so your protags, your antagonists, and just say your morally gray, your morally G characters. Those ones you're going to flesh out. And the best way to flesh these characters out is to choose one defining trait. For example, if you watch Naruto and you think of Sasuke, Sasuke is a serious, brooding character. It is incredibly difficult to write a joke for Sasuke because that's not his defining character trait. But it's so easy to write comedy scenes for Naruto because he's inherently funny. So you have to figure out what your characters, who are the funny ones? Because I guarantee you, it's just going to be so much easier to write jokes when that person comes into play. So you figure out what's the main character traits. Are they heroic? Is that the main one? Is he a serious character? Is he always angry? It's so you can write very angry and dramatic scenes if the character itself is already an angry person. So it's very easy to do that. Is this an emotional person? What kind of character traits does the person have? So you have your idea, you plot out your major event points, then you have your map and you can figure out on your map where are these major events happening. Then after you've got those major events, you now figure out, okay, these are my main characters, and because I have my map already and I have the major events, I can now say, okay, the main protagonist, the main character who the story evolves around, his story begins here on the map. His best friends are here and there. The antagonist will come into play at that point. And the morally great characters will come into that point. Why? Because I have a map and I have my major events already. You can figure those things out. You can figure out where to put that if you have these step 2 and step 3 already planned out. That's the best way to do it. Now, we've got plot, we've got world building, we've got characters, and now all you need to do is, now you just repeat and you go deeper and deeper and deeper. Writing fantasy, or at least planning fantasy, is all about layering. It's all about layering. You need to figure out, how do I make the story even better? How do I flesh out things? For example, if number 5, we go back to plot, and with plot we go to, side quests. Side quests. So these are not the main storyline, but they are part of the story. In my current novel that I'm writing, the first 10 chapters is actually a side quest. And I'll tell you why these side quests are important. Number 1, it builds the world a lot more. So in other words, I have time now to flesh out the world. I have time to explain how things look, how buildings look, the type of creatures that are in the book. I have time to explain it. I have time to explain what does the political climate look like, because I have a side quest. Otherwise, I'm just going to jump into the main story. And if I jump into the main story, you won't know all these other things. I don't have time to build it up. If you ever play games, you'll see that they have side quests in the games. And the point of those side quests is to build the main character up. so that he has enough experience points or strength or stats to go on for the main quest. It's the same here in your book. Side quests build the characters and it builds the world. So at the end of the 10 chapters, when that side quest is done, I guarantee you, number one, you'll know my world a bit better. You'll know about the king and the queen and all the structure of the army. You'll know the political climate that's in. You can even have an idea of what's going to happen in the future. You'll understand the weather systems and the magic systems. For the characters, you'll understand what is this main character's trait. What is he like? What is his struggle? What is his goals? What is the bad and the good about the character? You'll understand who's his best friend, who are his other friends, how does he relate to these people. That's the point of having side quests. They allow you to plot out the world a bit more, to flesh it out, and they allow you to have better characters. So you're now going to have side quests. And these side quests, you're just going to fill them in. So you have your map, and inside your map, you figure out where can I put these side quests in? And which characters do I want to build within these side quests? Because I'll tell you, at a certain point in my story, I had to skip some parts because it felt just so boring to write those. And when you get bored as a writer to write it, I guarantee you, the reader is going to get bored also. So I had to skip those parts, and I was wondering, why is it so difficult to write these scenes? And I found out it's because the characters in those scenes, I never fleshed them out enough in the beginning. So the reader doesn't really know what is why is this person doing what they're doing? What's the goal that this person has? Or what is the struggle that this person has? Does this character have anxiety? It's very good to have character flaws because that's realistic. Every person has a character flaw. And you have to make sure your character has a flaw. And those side quests are perfect places to flesh out those character flaws, where they can identify this is the struggle that the character is dealing with. So in the future, it's so much easier just to put that in, because you've had these side quests built. Then, so we've got our major 10 points. We've got our map where we can plot those major 10 points, and we have our characters, and now we can figure out with our characters, where do we put them in the major events and the map. Then from there, we'll go back. So now you repeat 2, 3, and 4 consistently. You go back to 2, but instead of major events, it's plot, now focusing on side quests, smaller things. Then, number 6, back to world building. And now you look at more detailed descriptions. So if I had to think of, the Turlock Triangle, there are 9 provinces. You have to flesh out what those provinces are like. I have to look at, okay, in each province there's a challenge. What is the major challenge in that province? Those are the kind of things that you need to plot out. If I think of the gloat is based off the real world. So it's based off a map in the Congo. So I didn't really need to draw a map. I had a map. All I had to do was figure out on the map, where am I going to put a hidden village, right? But I had to flesh out the world building. For example, what animals are they going to meet? So for example, now I had to research, what are the major animals within the Congo? There are gorillas, I put that in there. There are snakes, I put that in there. All these different kinds of animals, I had to research. It needs to be detailed world building. What are the different types of plants and trees? The Congo River, how does the Congo River run? Where is it wide? Where are the rapids? Those kind of things I had to figure out. The swamp, what is the swamp? What are the languages? If you read the Congo, you'll see there's a different language. I put Lingala in the book, because I had to figure out the world building for that. It has to be detailed. So it's important that you figure out. If I think of Journey of Soul Fantasy series, there's a whole lot of places in there. I have to figure out, okay, magic systems. The The people in everybody here has a gift. A gift is what we call the superpower in here. And I had to figure out, okay, what are the gifts? Now I had to break them down. There are 18 gifts, and I had to rank them as S rank, A rank, B rank, C rank, and so forth. How do you build those gifts up? How do you train your gifts? What is happening? What I did was I created a military system, and I have a mind map of all the military classes. So I have the generals, I have the major generals, I have the colonels, I have the captains, I have the lieutenants, and I have all of them listed, and I gave them names. And even if those characters don't come in, at least I have people in time to that I can just take and put into the story. But I plotted out how the whole military system works. I plotted out how the maps work, how where you're going to find fields, where you're going to find dry lands, where the cities are. If there's a city with a major library, what's going on in that library? What is the city known for? All those kind of things are in your world building. It needs to be as detailed as possible. Now, the important thing about world building is that it's not going to be the most memorable thing. Now, I want you to understand that, for example, if you think of Lord of the Rings, everybody knows, okay, there's orcs, there's hobbits, there's wizards. Those are parts of the world building, right? And you remember certain parts. But the thing that makes you keep watching or keep reading is still the story. It's the plot. So your plot is the main thing that you have to focus on. The world building allows you to expand the plot. It allows you to flesh it out. The world building is like the salt on the steak. The plot is your steak. It's the main thing that's feeding you. But if you want to make that steak better, you're going to need great world building. And the way you flavor it is by getting as much detail as possible. When you think of your world building, what I would tell you to do is go to ChatGPT and just make a prompt. Hi Chat, give me 15 things I need to think of when doing world building. They will give you a list. You'll see, okay, weather systems. What are the weather systems like? So now you think, okay, in the beginning of the story, it was summer. By the end of the story, what's the weather like? Is it still summer or is it winter? Is it autumn? Where is it? They'll tell you magic systems. What are the things you have to think about with the magic systems? The races, are they all the same races and characters? Is it just human beings or it's something else? What are the languages like? Are they new languages or just English? They'll tell you, if you go to a town, what does the people in those towns like to wear? What do they like to read? Is there a history of that town? That's what you're going to have to figure out when you do world building. It's detailed. A lot of fantasy is all about planning and writing. If you have any questions, make sure you put it in the chat. Right. So, number 7, we did plot, world building, characters, and then you repeat plot, world building, characters. So we go back to characters, and now we're just focusing on side characters. Now these side characters are important to the story, but they might not be memorable. Right? So, for example, the only people who will remember these side characters are the people who become super ultra fans of your book and they read it multiple times and they start creating lore about your book. Those are the people who will remember these side characters. But these are characters, the ones that you plan to kill off maybe later, or they'll be there for 2-3 chapters and never appear again. Those are those kind of side characters. Important, they move the story along, but they're not really the main part of the story, the memorable part. The memorable part is the part that you are planning in the beginning. So your protagonist, your antagonist, and your morally grey, those 3 main that you know is going to be there for multiple books in a while or right until the end of the book, those are important. But your side characters are only there for a while. So maybe they'll come in a side quest to help the main character for a while. And they're there for 2 chapters. Now, when I started writing, one of my biggest problems was that I didn't give I didn't flesh the side characters out enough. And that's a big problem. I've been reading Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time books, and I am amazed by how much emphasis he puts not into just the side characters, but into the side characters. An old lady who's there only for one page, not even a whole chapter, she's there for one page. And then he'll flesh that character out so well, you know how that lady looks. Because he takes so much emphasis in putting there. Now, you don't have to do all of that. But for your side characters, you do want to flesh them out so that when they come into the story, they are important to that scene. Because the more you flesh out your characters, the more real that scene feels like. Your character went into the supermarket, they met someone there, flesh that person out because it's going to give that scene a bit more flavor. It's going to make buying a bread more memorable because you fleshed out the characters within that scene. If you're going to skip fleshing out your side characters, I guarantee you, your story is not going to be very memorable. The only thing, remember, in your head, you want them to remember these major events. But if you can, try to get them to remember the side quests also. And remember the people that are in the side quests, the side characters. And when you flesh these side characters out a lot more, I tell you, it becomes so much more memorable. Your reader takes their time to understand. Sometimes you can even create a whole lore based on the side characters, figuring out where they plot in. And if you flesh them out well, and in the future, let's say you write a second or a third book based on that same world, because you flesh them out well, when you bring those characters back in after 3 books later, people are still going to remember them. Because you flesh them so well out in book 1, that in book 3, they are memorable. Are there any questions? Okay, give me some.
So from RITN official, how do you find or refine your writing style even after you have some foundation for your story?
So the question is, how do we refine our writing style when you already have a foundation? The first thing I want you to understand is that when you are writing, especially if it's your first book, do not waste too much time on editing or on being perfect, trying to find the right word or thing. Don't waste time on that. Just try to get the book done, because that's the hardest part that people always struggle with getting done. What you're going to do is you focus on just writing, write, get that story done. And then in the editing phase, this is where you're going to do it. So I have 4 rounds of editing. The first round of editing is just normal spelling and grammar check. The second round is world building. So I go back to the story and I think, okay, I entered a new building. Did I actually describe the building? I introduced a new character. Did I describe that character? Those kind of things. Because when you figure out those things and you take the time to work on that, the next time you write, I guarantee you, you're going to remember that. Because it takes time. It has to become a muscle memory for you. So in the beginning, when you write, it's not going to be a muscle memory. But in your editing, you can fix those things. So in your editing, you fix out, okay, the world building here. Then I go back. Round 3 is inconsistency. If the character couldn't swim in chapter 1, why can he suddenly swim in chapter 6? The character had 3 fingers in chapter 1, suddenly have 5 fingers in chapter 6. That's what we talk about when we talk about inconsistency. Chapter 2, his mother died. Why is his mother here in chapter 5? We want to figure out consistencies in spelling, inconsistencies in the stories. And then round 4, again, we go back to spelling and grammar again because you added new things in. Right? That's the best way to figure those out. Any other questions? Those. All right. So, let's go over it again. Number 1. First, have an idea, and I can't stress it enough. Make sure your idea is what you personally want to write about. Never write what someone else says. When somebody tells me, hey, you should write a book about this, I ignore them. Because as soon as you write a book about what someone else wants, it's going to take so long. It's also one of the reasons why I don't like ghostwriting. I do ghostwriting. I don't like it because I feel the story is more authentic when you write your own story. That's why I do book coaching instead of ghostwriting. I'd rather coach you through writing your own book where it's more authentic, because when you have the idea and you enjoy writing that book, it's so much better. So make sure that your idea is based off you, and to get good ideas, develop more hobbies. Go to a dance class, join martial arts, go learn painting, go for a hike, go running, go swimming, go traveling to new places. All of these things, they develop your creativity, and from there you can develop ideas. Watch new movies, new series and things. Watch some anime. Right. So that's the first one. Number 2 is you want to plot your major events. Right? Think of minimum 10. Never go less than 10, minimum 10. For my current book, I have 30. I have 30 major events that I think of when I want the readers to think of my book. These are the 30 things they must think of. So 30 major events. If you read my book and you talk to your friend about my book, what are you going to talk about? You're not going to talk about the small things that happen. You're going to talk about the major events, the selling points. And that's what you want to figure out early in the beginning. So, who dies? Is there a trigger that makes you chase after his goal? Was there a mental breakdown? Is there a screaming match? Because sometimes screaming matches are great. When did he kiss the girl? Those kind of things. Then you do your world building. And when I say world building, we're only focusing on maps. And maps, you can go online. All right, how do I type in? How do I draw fantasy maps? And honestly, if you start getting to this, you're going to get hooked. Because I got hooked on drawing fantasy maps. I'll draw 5 of the same map just because it's so much fun figuring out how to do it. Right? I've learned how to do it on computer. But you want to draw but I still prefer the paper. You're going to draw your maps. And then on the map, you can now plot your major events. So you can take those major events and plot them on the map. Okay, in this city that happens, in that city this happens, this fight happens in this forest, there's the field where it happens. You can plot those major events on the map. After the map, you now figure out your characters. Now, remember, when you have your idea, you already have an idea of a character, right? But now that you have your major events and your map, you know now what the character needs, the type of character traits. Do I want my character to start out as a coward and then become heroic? Or does he have that heroic traits inherently? Do I want him to have an amazing power? Is he overpowered? Or is he an underdog? Do I want my character to be a romantic? Does he know how to talk to girls or doesn't he know how to talk to girls? Those things you can figure out. Is he a serious, brooding bad boy? Or is he a comedy guy? Those things you can figure out. You can figure out who's his best friend. Is his best friend just like him or is his best friend different? You will know what's important because of your major events. Right? Your antagonist, you will know where the antagonist starts and what's the main event where he meets the antagonist and how often do they meet. You'll know the morally grey characters. Where do those come into? Because when you write your story, you obviously want flow. Your story is not going to climb. Your story is going to climb and dip. Climb higher and dip. Climb higher and dip. And those are all based on your major events. If I think of the search for power, a good tip will be your chapter 1 should end on a major event. Chapter 1 should end on a major event, and that major event should tell you exactly this is what the book is about. When they read it, at the end of chapter 1, they should be either hooked or not hooked. Now, I want you to think of some main stories that you like. At the end of Harry Potter chapter 1, what happens? It's when Hagrid says, "You're a wizard, Harry." Now you know. The book is about Harry being a wizard. If you think of Hunger Games, how does chapter 1 end? It's with her saying, "I volunteer to go." Now you know what the book is about. It's a major event that tells the whole story in a nutshell. Right? In this one, chapter 1 ends with him deciding to go and search for this power. Now you know this is what the book is about. The gloat, what does chapter 1 end with? It's him deciding he's going to go to the Congo. That's how it ends. The Turlock Triangle, how does the chapter 1 end? It ends with them winning the first preliminary tournament and finally being accepted to go into the Turlock tournament. Now you know what the story is about. It needs, your chapter 1 always needs to end on a major event plot point that tells you what the rest of the story is going to be about. So that's what's important. And you have your map, you have your characters, and you have them all fleshed out. Now, number 5 is now where we start repeating. Now we go into side quests. Remember, fantasy is all about layering. You put the first layer down, then you put the second layer down, the third and fourth. As long as you see you can add more layers, do so. And the more layers you add, the bigger and bigger the story becomes. Most of my books are around 60,000 words. I try to keep them in that range. The current book, I've layered so much that my book is almost at 300,000 words and I'm still writing more. It's probably going to go over that. Because I've layered too much. Oh, not too much. The story is amazing. You're going to read it. But I've layered the story so well that the few chapters that I planned for it is not enough. So, you do your side quests. Side quests are important for building the world and for building the main characters. That's the importance of side quests. You're going to know the world better. Because remember, if you're going to apply a plan out of a really great world, it's so difficult to explain that in a few short chapters. So you're going to need extra chapters with a side quest, a story that goes with it, that links to the main story, but is not the main story. But it builds your world better. It tells the reader, this is the kind of world, this is how the magic system works, this is how the powers work, this is who's in charge, this is the political climate, these are the people that are in charge. Is it a utopian society or a dystopian society? What kind of food do they eat? You can flesh all of that in the side quests. You can flesh your characters out. Does my main character have a family? What's his mom and his dad like? Maybe his mom and dad is not important to the story, but it's important to the character. And they're not going to be in the story, in the main storyline, but in those side quests, you can build them up. So that later when he thinks on them, you think how important it is for him. In in my new book, one of my characters, they have a girlfriend, right? Now, she's not in the main story at all. But I spent the side quest building their relationship up so that when he goes on his main quest, she becomes a driver for him to come back home. She is whatever he thinks of when he thinks of going back home. When he thinks of, I need to get this done, he thinks of her. And that's not going to matter if I didn't build their relationship up first. It only matters if you took the time to flesh out those things in the side quests. So if you want to build a character a bit more, so let's say you're writing a book and you may be near the end and you find that this character is boring. Go back, add another scene in with maybe just a side quest. It can be something as simple as them sitting around the table and eating, right? That's fine because you can still build that character up in there. Then you go now to your detailed world building. And when I say detailed, I mean detailed layer by layer by layer. Use ChatGPT to figure out what are the different layers I can add in. What's the weather systems like? What is there? Are there different dimensions? How do I describe the buildings? Help me to describe buildings. What type of material do they use to describe buildings? Is it basalt? Is it granite? If they built it, if it's a palace, it's not going to be cheap wood. So you research what is expensive wood that will be used in a castle. Those kind of things. If they're entering a jungle, what kind of jungle is it? What types of trees? Because you want to describe the trees in that jungle. You want to know what kind of insects and animals are involved. those kind of things. If you're creating a whole new species, you're gonna have to figure out the history of that species. All of that is in your detailed world building phase. And then when you're done with that, you go to characters. Now you do your side characters. These are characters who come into the story just for a little while to move the story along, and then they're removed. But you want to flesh them out so that later if you put them back in, they are memorable. Those are your side characters. And when you are done with that, again, you're going to repeat step 2, 3, and 4 again. Now you can go to even smaller side quests, even more detailed world building, even more detailed side characters that may or may not be important. But you want to start big, go smaller, go smaller, go smaller until you can't go small enough. And that's as far as you go. Any questions? No questions. If you do have any questions, you can put it in the chat. But for now, that's what we'll do. We'll talk again about what the next session will be on. So glad to have you here. Thank you.
Sunshine creeping through my window as I close my eyes. Fall back into bed, it was